New tonight, a boss spending hours spying on his staff, one woman in particular.
Now, he's not just any boss. Jared Smout oversaw the people running the $10 billion pension fund that was earmarked for Arizona's police and firefighters. Today, his bosses fired him in the wake of a disturbing investigation. Team 12's Bram Resnick reports that Smout has admitted to many of these allegations. Bram?
Yeah, Jared Smout admitted to investigators he regularly watched a female staffer on in-house surveillance cameras for a few months, maybe longer, sometimes for several hours a day. Married man said he had feelings for her. Now, this is the latest scandal for a pension fund that's been troubled for years. And it's more than just the boss behaving badly. Our tax dollars help pay for this pension fund.
Jared Smout was the top administrator of the $10 billion state pension fund that provides for the retirements of police, firefighters, and other public safety officers. The 48-year-old Smout was paid $252,000 a year to run the public safety personnel retirement system. That ended about 2 p.m. Wednesday in this virtually empty boardroom.
I make a motion terminating employment of Administrator Jared Smout.
The PSPRS Board of Trustees voted 8-0 via telephone to fire Smout. The board said it had no choice. 2 days ago, a state agency's outside investigation urged immediate action to terminate Mr. Smout. His conduct does not even remotely comply with PSPRS values, and he's brought embarrassment and discredit to the state. These 2 pages of allegations and findings, much of it redacted, tell a very disturbing story. Smout would view live surveillance video of office staffers for hours every day. 12 News has learned Smout, who is married, focused on one woman. He admitted to investigators he had feelings for her and that his attraction was romantic. Smout admitted to sending inappropriate text messages and may have run his hands up and down a staffer's back when they hugged. Smout's explanation? He was a man.
Now, other pension fund staffers reported to Jared Smout they felt they were being spied on, but investigators say Smout did nothing about it. Smout acknowledged to investigators his conduct was not acceptable. Still unanswered is why the pension fund board gave Smout a $45,000 a year retroactive raise at the end of last year. Let's send it back to you.
All right, Bram, thank you.